Hey guys, tonight we're crawling into the frozen ribs of Europe, somewhere between the jagged Carpathian peaks and the endless forests that separate Poland from Ukraine. It's the winter of 1943, and the snow doesn't just fall at attacks. You can hear it scratching at your coat, whispering through your scarf, promising frostbite before morning. And you're about to find out how soldiers half dead from exhaustion managed to sleep inside caves that were never meant for humans. ... You probably won't survive this, so before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, drop your local time and where you're watching from in the comments. I always love seeing our little night owl army lighting up the map. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Snow bites your cheeks as you trudge uphill, rifle slung over one shoulder, boots stiff as iron. The retreat has gone on for weeks, and the world has turned into an endless field of white teeth ready to chew you up. You don't even feel your fingers anymore. Every step is an argument between muscle and ice. Someone behind you curses softly, voice muffled by the storm. Ahead, your sergeant shouts something, but the wind eats the words. Then you see it. A black mouth in the hillside, no wider than a truck, half hidden by a cave. You and the others scramble toward it like moths chasing a candle. Inside, the light dims instantly. Your breath turns visible, curling in small white ghosts before fading into the dark. The first thing you notice is silence. Not peace, just the kind of silence that listens back. You stomp your boots, shaking off the crusted ice. The cave floor is uneven, slick with frozen mud and old stones. Someone mutters, "At least it's not open sky." Another laughs, hollow and brittle. Historians still argue whether these mountain caves were planned refuges or accidents of desperation. Some believe local guides led retreating troops to them, using knowledge of the terrain that only shepherds once knew. Others think soldiers simply stumbled across them, like you just did, and decided that anything with a roof of stone was better than dying in the snow. You drop your pack and sink against the wall. The stone is colder than death itself. Every breath echoes somewhere deeper in the cave. Dripping water keeps time like a broken clock. A few men light a single candle. The tiny flame throws enormous shadows. Your comrades' faces stretch long and monstrous across the rock. You all look like cavemen who've misplaced civilization. Your fingers tremble as you unbuckle your gear. The metal parts burn with cold. The last of your rations, a square of black bread and something pretending to be sausage, has frozen solid. You knock it against your helmet, and it sounds like stone. Someone jokes that you could use it as a hammer. You all laugh, though it's not really funny. You remember hearing before the retreat that some units used dynamite to expand these caves, turning them into crude barracks. You glance around and doubt it. The walls are rough and raw. Nature carved this place long before war existed. You imagine prehistoric hunters crouching here, whispering the same prayers for warmth. A soldier near you coughs. The sound bounces off every surface. You notice his breath forming rings of vapor that glow in the candlelight, like halos for the damned. Another man takes off his boots, rubbing his feet furiously. The smell hits everyone at once, a mix of sweat, leather, and decay. You all groan, but no one complains. Survival is no longer about comfort. It's about endurance. Someone tries to start a fire near the entrance, using a few frozen branches and a page torn from a German field manual. The spark dies instantly. The wind, rushing through the cave's mouth, devours it. No fire, an older corporal warns. Smoke'll give us away. He's right. Enemy patrols still roam these valleys, and a single wisp of smoke could call down shells. So, instead of flames, you get darkness. Instead of warmth, you get the company of other men freezing beside you. There's an odd comfort in that, the shared misery somehow making it bearable. You curl your knees up, bury your face in your scarf, and listen to the strange music of the mountain. The wind's howl, the slow drip, the occasional groan of ice expanding in the rock. Your mind drifts to something strange, the last barracks you slept in, where you complained about bad mattresses and lumpy pillows. Now, you'd kill for either. It's funny how the definition of luxury changes once you start negotiating with frostbite. Outside, the snow thickens, swallowing the world whole. Inside, the air is heavy and damp. One soldier whispers a joke about how maybe bears used to sleep here before you did. Another answers, "Then we took their job." Everyone chuckles softly. Even in misery, humor survives. You try to close your eyes, but the cold keeps shaking you awake. Each breath feels like inhaling needles. Still, you press your back to the wall and tell yourself you'll rest just for a moment. Somewhere far away, artillery thuds like distant thunder. You tell yourself it's miles off. You tell yourself you're safe. You know neither is true. Some historians later wrote that soldiers found these caves psychologically protective. The stone felt eternal, immune to chaos, a reminder that wars come and go, but the earth endures. Maybe that's why, even as your body trembles and your teeth chatter, there's a strange calm in this hollow mountain. It's as if the cave itself is whispering, "I've seen worse. You'll pass too." The candle sputters low. Shadows bend and stretch like living things. You pull your coat tighter and whisper a single thought into the frozen dark. "Just let me sleep until morning." The cave doesn't answer, but it doesn't have to. The wind outside grows angrier overnight. You wake to its moaning jazz sound that feels half human, half beast. The entrance to the cave has narrowed under drifts of snow, glowing faintly blue from the daylight beyond. You crawl toward it, pull back a flap of burlap someone hung as a makeshift curtain, and watch the storm swirl. Everything outside is colorless, motionless, lifeless. You realize you've entered a world where time doesn't move. It just shivers. The mountain exhales mist into the cave. You can feel it crawl down your neck. The air smells like minerals and death-wet rock mixed with gun oil. You wrap your scarf tighter, but it's like fighting a ghost. Cold here doesn't bite. It seeps. It gets under your fingernails, behind your eyes, into your thoughts. Someone says, "If we stay here long enough, we'll turn into statues." No one laughs this time. You take stock of your The cave walls glisten like glass, thin sheets of ice reflecting candlelight. In some corners, stalactites hang like frozen daggers. The ceiling breathes condensation that drips rhythmically, slow, cruel torture by water. You crouch beside one of the puddles forming beneath it, running a finger through. It's bitterly cold, but clean. Maybe drinkable. The sergeant orders a few men to explore deeper inside. You join them, ducking through a narrow passage that leads farther into the mountain. The air grows heavier, quieter. Your footsteps echo like intrusions. You half expect to find bones ancient or modern because soldiers have been running to caves since wars began. Romans, Mongols, Russians, Germans, they all sought stone when the world outside burned. Historians still argue whether cave shelters were a tactical plan or a last-minute panic move. Soviet archives suggest engineers mapped natural caverns for retreat routes, but veterans later swore it was pure chaos. We just followed the wind until we found a hole. The truth, as always, probably sits somewhere in the cold middle at one bend. You find a crude carving scratched into the wall, a name illegible followed by a date, 1942. Someone was here before you. You touch the letters. The ice has sealed them in a tiny fossil of desperation. For a second, you feel less alone. When you return to the main chamber, the others have rearranged supplies. They've stacked crates and rucksacks to block drafts, creating tiny alcoves that pretend to be private rooms. It's ridiculous in men packed into one frozen stomach, but it gives the illusion of order. One soldier, a boy really, maybe 19, ties a string between two rocks and hangs his socks from it. They freeze within minutes, stiff as wood. You both laugh. You think about how soldiers used to dream of warm barracks and feather pillows, and now the fantasy has shrunk to not dying of frost. It's astonishing how adaptable the human brain is, and how little it demands once stripped of comfort. Outside, the wind howls again, louder, like an angry god realizing it's been defied. Snow sprays through cracks in the rocks, a million glittering knives. You pull your greatcoat over your face. Someone nearby mutters, "At least it keeps the bullets out." Maybe he believes it. Maybe you do too. A candle flickers on a crate, its light trembling across everyone's faces. You can read exhaustion like scripture, hollow cheeks, cracked lips, eyes that twitch from sleeplessness. One man talks about home, a bakery in Krakow, the smell of warm bread. Another interrupts, "Don't talk about food, please." You all chuckle weakly. Then an odd thing happens. The air in the cave begins to move, slowly, rhythmically. It feels alive. Every gust from the entrance carries a strange whistle, like a flute. The sound echoes through the tunnels, haunting yet somehow musical. For a few minutes, everyone stops talking. You all just listen. One soldier whispers, "It's the mountain breathing." Someone else says, "No, it's the souls of those who froze before us." Neither idea feels entirely wrong. The temperature drops another degree. You can feel it even without a thermometer. Your breath comes out in thicker clouds. To distract yourself, you count drips from the ceiling. One every 5 seconds, steady as a clock. 5 seconds per drop, 720 drops per hour by morning. You'll have listened to thousands. Funny how math becomes meditation when you're trapped. You rub your hands together, trying to coax warmth. The skin splits slightly at your knuckles. Blood wells up, freezes instantly. You stare at the tiny red crystal. It looks almost beautiful. War has a way of making even pain seem artistic when everything else has gone gray. One man pulls out a harmonica. No one knows where he kept it, probably his breast pocket, near his heart. He plays softly, a tune you recognize but can't name. Maybe an old folk song. The melody mingles with the cave's moan, turning the cold space into something human for a moment. You close your eyes and imagine the world outside melting, but imagination fades fast when your body's shaking. The harmonica stops. Someone sighs. You all fall silent again, drifting into that strange half-sleep soldiers know so well, the kind where your body shuts down but your ears stay awake. Outside, the wind claws at the stones. Inside, the mountain whispers. You wonder which voice is older before your eyes close. You think about historians again, how they'll one day argue whether you truly suffered or adapted or went numb. But they'll never know what it felt like to have the air itself weigh more than your heart. the last sound before you slip into uneasy. Sleep is that haunting whistle through the caves, throat steady, mournful, alive. When morning comes, you don't notice at first. There's no sunrise here, just a dim shift in the gray light seeping through the snow-choked entrance. Someone kicks your boot. Up, he mutters. His breath puffs out like cigarette smoke. You sit up slowly, every muscle protesting, the cold gnawing at your joints like invisible rats. The cave feels even smaller now. The walls have closed in, or maybe your mind has. You shuffle forward and step into the faint daylight. The snow outside is blinding, pure white, stretched endlessly across the ridges. The sky itself seems frozen solid. You take one breath of that air sharp as glass and retreat inside again. You've confirmed what you already knew. Leaving the cave isn't an option. You drop back to the floor, your rifle clattering beside you. The sound echoes strangely, bouncing off the icy stone. The acoustics here are unnerving. Everything repeats, as though a ghost version of yourself is mimicking. Every movement, a heartbeat late. Today's task is simple: make the place livable, or at least survivable. You and the others start scraping at the frozen mud, carving small recesses to lie in. The steel edges of your bayonet clang against the rock. Sparks flash briefly, then vanish. After an hour, you've hollowed out a shallow trench just wide enough for your body. It's like digging your own coffin, but you'll take it. Coffins are warmer. Historians later discovered that many soldiers did this, carving beds into the stone to minimize contact with the icy ground. Some units even layered the hollows with straw, hay, or pine needles if they could find any. You have none of those luxuries. You just scrape, sweat, and hope. Sweat, that's the dangerous part. Once it forms, the cold steals it. You wipe your forehead with a rag, but the moisture instantly crystallizes on your sleeve. You feel like a man freezing from the inside out. A corporal named Mikhail starts stacking rocks to make a wall near the entrance, trying to block the draft. You help, pressing your numb fingers against the stones. They cling to your skin like magnets. When you finally pull away, you leave a few layers of flesh behind. You don't even wince. Pain has become background noise, like breathing. Imagine this back home, Mikhail says, through chattering teeth. We'd be legends. Sleeping in a cave like wolves. You grin weakly. Yeah, but wolves are smarter. They know when to hibernate. He laughs, then coughs. The sound turns into a hacking fit that shakes his whole body. You both know it's bad. In this cold, every cough could be the start of pneumonia. You pat his shoulder. But there's nothing else you can do. Someone farther in the cave manages to start a tiny fire using a tin can and strips of cloth soaked in fuel from a disassembled lamp. The flame is pitiful, trembling like a scared animal, but everyone gathers around it instantly. The smell of burning fabric mixes with the metallic temps of smoke. The light flickers across hollow-faced men, 10 ghosts pretending to be alive. You hold your hands near the heat. It barely registers. Still, the orange glow feels like a miracle. For a few moments, the shadows look softer, the cave less cruel. One man pulls out a chunk of hardtack and smacks it with a rock until it cracks. He soaks it in melted snow and chews slowly. You watch, fascinated, as if it's a luxury meal. He offers a piece. You shake your head. Save it, you say. You'll need it more than me. You mean it, but mostly, you can't face the taste. There's a soft sound behind you, someone humming. You turn and see a soldier tracing lines on the cave wall with a blackened piece of charcoal. He's drawing a map, or maybe a memory. It's a crude sketch of a house, a woman, and a dog. You can't help but smile. The human instinct to leave marks proof of existence survives even here. You join him. With a stub of burnt stick, you draw beside his picture a cup of steaming coffee. He laughs quietly. "You're cruel," he says. "Now I'm hungry and homesick." The cave starts to feel less like a tomb and more like a bizarre dormitory. Each man has his tiny niche, his rituals. One keeps whittling a stick into the shape of a spoon. Another rewinds his watch every hour, even though time has no meaning. Someone mutters prayers in polish. These small acts keep you sane. Maybe that's the real insulation, the mind's refusal to freeze. As evening creeps back, the wind rises again. The draft wall trembles. Snow seeps in through cracks, sprinkling over your gear like powdered sugar. You wrap yourself tighter and think about warmth, not the physical kind, but memory's version. The smell of bread, the hum of a radio, your mother's hands rubbing yours before bed. For a moment, you can almost feel them. You know from army manuals that the human body can withstand incredible cold if it stays dry. But dryness is a myth here. Even your thoughts feel damp. The condensation on the cave walls sparkles faintly in the candlelight, like frost stars. You watch them form and melt in slow rhythm, hypnotized. A soldier mutters something half asleep. "We're not men anymore, we're mushrooms." Everyone chuckles weakly, and you realize he's not wrong. You're thriving in darkness, feeding off rot and moisture. Historians later noted that these caves often turned into micro-ecosystems, mold blooming on ration tins, fungus on boots, stalactites forming overnight from mineral-rich air. It's oddly beautiful if you forget how miserable it was when you finally lie down in your carved-out hollow. Your back presses against the rock, and you feel strangely safe, as if the mountain itself has accepted you into its ribs. You close your eyes and imagine the snow sealing the entrance completely, burying the world outside, a white coffin for all your noise and fear. The last thought before you drift into sleep isn't about war or home or even survival. It's a small, quiet wish that the rock stays still through the night and doesn't crack under the weight of ice outside. The blizzard screams again, but inside the cave, you only hear your own heartbeat, slow and stubborn, refusing to stop. You wake up gasping. For a split second, you don't know where you are. The ceiling above you is black, glistening with beads of ice. Someone's elbow digs into your ribs, too close, too warm. Then it clicks. The cave, the cold, the war. You're still inside the mountain's frozen stomach. Your breath hangs in front of you, a ghostly wisp that swirls and vanishes. The fire has died during the night. Only a faint ember glows, like an eye refusing to shut. You crawl toward it, blow gently, and the tiny spark flares red for a moment before fading again. The air tastes of burnt cloth and iron. You think about lighting it again, but you stop yourself. The corporal's warning from yesterday echoes in your head. Smoke will give us away. And he's right. Somewhere beyond these slopes, scouts are sniffing for warmth. A puff of smoke in the wrong wind could call down artillery faster than you can say home, so you settle for the darkness. Soldiers on retreat learn quickly. Comfort is dangerous. Fire is luxury, and luxury gets you killed. You pull your coat tighter and feel the thin wool rasp against your neck. The lining is damp. It's always damp. Even your breath seems to wet the air. Your boots, stiff as boards, clack when you try to move your toes. For a moment, you consider taking them off, but you've seen what happens when someone does that. The cold doesn't forgive. Outside, a dull explosion rumbles far away. but close enough to remind you the war hasn't frozen. You imagine men on the other side of the valley, huddled in their own caves, wondering if you're still alive. Maybe they're just as afraid to strike a match. The cave's air is heavy, almost alive. You can hear it moving, groaning softly, like the mountain is shifting in its sleep. The sound unsettles you. You glance toward the walls and spot thin white tendrils spreading down from the ceiling, frost veins, slowly crawling across the stone-like living roots. They glitter in the faint candlelight. It's beautiful in a cruel way. You reach into your pack and pull out a half-empty tin of sardines. The oil inside has solidified into pale jelly. You dig at it with a pocket knife, scoop a lump onto a piece of bread, and swallow. The taste is metallic, sharp, but at least it's taste. Hunger has no pride. The man beside you, a quiet radio operator named Tomas, watches with hollow eyes. You offer him a piece. He hesitates, then takes it. "Coldest meal I ever had," he says. You smirk. Could be worse. Could be the same meal, but with company you hate. He almost smiles. "I'd still eat it." Humor, that fragile spark, keeps flickering even here. Maybe it's the last fire left. Historians later wrote that soldiers in these winter retreats learned a kind of silent brotherhood. Speech wasted warmth, so men talked less, moved slower, became creatures of breath and instinct. Some accounts say you could go days without hearing anyone's full sentence. The silence wasn't emptiness, it was conservation. The corporal returns from the entrance, brushing snow off his shoulders. "White out," he mutters. "We're sealed in for the day." No one reacts. Being trapped is old news. He sets down a dented metal boxer, fuel can, maybe, and opens it. Inside are the remnants of a candle stub and a single match. "We use this tonight," he says firmly. "Not now." He closes the lid and sits. You realize you've started to measure time by candles, not clocks. A flame equals an evening. No flame means eternity. By midday, condensation has turned the cave into a strange ecosystem. Drops fall from the ceiling like slow rain. Each one hits the floor with a faint plink that echoes endlessly. You count them without meaning to, marking rhythm in a world without hours. You think about the last time you slept indoors, a barracks, maybe a farmhouse. The memory feels distant, almost fictional. A warm bed, blankets, a stove. It's astonishing how quickly the human mind forgets softness once it's been stripped away. Your sergeant crawls over, wiping frost from his mustache. "We'll take shifts at the entrance," he says, "just in case." In case of what? Someone mutters. He shrugs. "Everything." You volunteer for the first watch. Crawling toward the mouth of the cave, you find the air colder but strangely clearer. You can see maybe a few meters into the storm before it turns into a white blur. The wind screams, carrying the faint smell of pine and gunpowder. You press your back against the rock and wait. For 2 hours, you sit like that, breathing, listening. Your eyelids droop. You start seeing shapes in the snow. Faces, helmets, animals. Once, you think you glimpse movement. You blink, and it's gone. Fatigue plays tricks on vision. When your shift ends, you crawl back inside. Your body is shaking so hard, your teeth rattle. Someone passes you a small tin cup filled with melted snow. It's lukewarm, faintly smoky from the earlier fire. You sip slowly, pretending it's tea. Later, as night swallows the cave again, the corporal strikes the single match. The flare blinds you for a second, then steadies as he lights the stub of wax. The flame dances like a nervous heartbeat. You all stare at it, 10 pairs of eyes, hypnotized by something so small. you realize how fire changes everything. It gives the illusion of civilization. The shadows on the walls soften. Faces look human again. You could almost believe you're safe. Someone hums quietly an old folk tune, the kind your grandmother used to hum while shelling peas. The others join in, not with words, just sound. The melody fills the space like breath. For a few minutes, you forget about frostbite, about the shells echoing miles away. Historians still debate whether soldiers in such retreats felt hope or numbness. Maybe they were the same thing. Hope might just be numbness, wearing a brave face. The candle burns low. The corporal shields it with his hand, whispering something like a prayer. You close your eyes and listen to the flicker. Tonight, there's no laughter, no arguments, no fear, just breathing slow, rhythmic, human. The kind that says, we're still here. You wake before dawn not because of any sound, but because your body refuses to lie still another second. Your back aches from the stone, your knees throb, and your fingers feel more like splinters of wood than flesh. For a moment, you think the air has gotten warmer, but it's just your own breath curling back toward you in thicker clouds. Someone is whispering nearby. You tilt your head and see two soldiers crouched by a pile of rags and straw. They're rearranging it carefully, almost tenderly. Blankets, one murmurs, kind of. You drag yourself closer, curious. The blanket is an unholy patchwork of burlap sacks, bits of uniforms, and what might once have been a horse blanket. It stinks of sweat, mildew, and old straw, but when you touch it, your fingers don't sting from the cold immediately. That's enough. You join in, tearing strips from an old coat to add to the pile. Soon, you've built a lumpy mattress that can fit 2 men, a ridiculous luxury. You press your palm into it, and for the first time in days, something gives under your touch. Not much, but enough to fool your bones. Historians say soldiers during the winter retreats scavenged every possible material to create insulation, hay stolen from barns, pages torn from abandoned books, even wads of dried grass stuffed into clothing. Some units shredded spare maps to line their boots. You'd do the same without hesitation. Paper burns fast, but it warms even faster. If only for seconds, you shake out a bit of straw onto your trench-shaped sleeping hollow. The smell is earthy, almost comforting. It reminds you of summer barns, of laughter you've half forgotten. Memory, it turns out, is the warmest blanket you own. Tomas, the radio operator, watches you. You know, he says softly, my mother used to put hot bricks in our bed before winter nights, wrapped in cloth. You grin weakly. Trade you 3 tins of sardines for 1 brick. He laughs a real laugh this time, loud enough to echo. The others glance over, startled. Then someone else chuckles, and for a brief moment, the cave feels like a home full of bad jokes, instead of a tomb full of men. By midday, the patchwork bedding spreads across the floor like a chaotic quilt. Everyone contributes something: shirts, socks, even scraps of rope to tie the layers together. You lie down on your portion and exhale. It's still cold, but not cruel. The difference feels enormous. You realize, with a strange pang of pride, that this ragged bedding is a victory, a small rebellion against the elements. Then the smell hits. Damp fabric, unwashed bodies, and something metallic underneath it all. The air has thickened overnight, every breath tasting like rust. The cave's walls glisten darker now, as if sweating along with you. You sit up, rubbing your temples. The constant dripping from the ceiling has found a new rhythm, steady, hypnotic, just slow enough to drive you mad. You hear someone curse softly as a drop lands squarely on his forehead. Perfect aim, he mutters. Nature's revenge. Another replies. You smile into your sleeve. As the day stretches on, the cold shifts from sharp to heavy. It doesn't stab anymore, it just sits on you, like a weight you can't move. The straw has absorbed moisture, becoming clammy and dark. Still, no one dares complain. Every inch of insulation counts. Historians debate whether these improvised blankets did much good. Some claimed the straw trapped moisture, actually speeding frostbite. Others argued that without them, thousands more would have died. You decide, it doesn't matter. In war, comfort isn't measured in degrees, it's measured in moments when you can close your eyes without shaking as night falls. The corporal rations out another small candle. The flicker glows gold against the damp walls, reflecting in the puddles like miniature suns. You all curl up close, wrapped in your makeshift bedding. Someone hums again, a habit now, a quiet ritual before sleep. Outside, wind still howls through the valley, but the sound no longer feels hostile. It's just there, like ocean waves you've grown used to. You almost feel sorry for it. The storm is screaming, and you're not listening anymore. You press your face into the straw and close your eyes. Your mind drifts, slower this time, softer. You imagine being home, not in a bed, but lying in a field on a summer afternoon. Grass scratching your arms, bees humming somewhere nearby. The smell of earth in your nose is the same, except back home it meant life, not survival. Someone shifts beside you, murmuring in his sleep. Another coughs. The sound echoes faintly, almost melodic. You count the breaths of the men around you, and the rhythm lulls you deeper. It's strange how quickly the body learns new lullabies. Before you drift off, you think about how odd it is that something so filthy, wet straw and dirty fabric can feel like salvation. You whisper a joke to no one. Luxury accommodation, mountain view, includes complimentary rats. The thought makes you smile. If you can still joke, maybe you're still alive. And somewhere between that thought and sleep, the line between cave and home blurs. The cold softens. The stone feels like skin. For the first time since the retreat began, you sleep deeply, dreamlessly, like the mountain itself is holding you. You wake to a strange sound, soft, rhythmic, almost gentle. For a few seconds, you think it's rain. But then you remember, rain doesn't fall here. It's the cave breathing again. The moisture from all your bodies has condensed overnight, turning the air thick and misty. When you open your mouth to yawn, it feels like drinking fog. The entire cave glows faintly blue from the thin daylight filtering through the snow-blocked entrance. A thin film of ice coats the walls, catching every flicker of candlelight like crystal veins. You sit up slowly, stretching your arms. The air is so cold, it crackles in your lungs. All around you, men stir under their straw blankets, blinking into the gloom. No one speaks yet. Words come later. After warmth, if warmth ever comes, you take your canteen and shake it, empty again. You crawl toward a small hollow where melted snow drips steadily from a crack in the ceiling. Someone's placed a tin mug beneath it overnight. The rim has frozen over, a thin collar of ice forming a tiny halo. You tap it lightly. It shatters like glass. You take a sip. It's clean but bitter, tasting faintly of stone. When you exhale, your breath curls upward and vanishes into the mist. You realize the whole cave has become a cloud. Every movement stirs the vapor. Every breath shapes it. You wave your hand slowly, watching the air ripple. It's beautiful and eerie at once, like living inside a lung. Tomas mutters from behind you, voice raspy. Feels like the mountain's alive. You nod. Maybe it is. Maybe we're inside something that's dreaming of spring. He snorts. Then it's having a nightmare. You both laugh softly, careful not to waste breath. Historians later described this exact phenomenon in diaries from the Eastern Front. Caves and bunkers where humidity was so high that ceilings wept. Soldiers sometimes called it the mist room. They said it felt like sleeping in the mouth of the world. Some believed it was poisonous, that the air itself made men slower, duller, less human. You can understand why. The moisture sticks to your skin like a second coat. Your hair is damp. Even your rifle sweats a thin layer of frost melting along the barrel. You wipe it clean with a rag, careful to keep the mechanism dry. A frozen weapon is worse than no weapon at all. Someone near the entrance sneezes violently, then swears. The sound echoes, rolling through the chamber like thunder. The corporal glares. "Quiet," he hisses. Sound carries, but it's too late. You all hear it, the faint clap of echo, bouncing far down the tunnel. For a moment, everyone freezes, listening. Nothing answers, just the drip, drip, drip. Still, the reminder stings. Even the mountain has ears. You huddle back into your straw, rubbing your hands together. They're cracked and red, each knuckle a tiny wound. The oil from your sardine tin worked as hand balm for a while, but that's long gone. Now, the skin peels in thin curls. You flex your fingers anyway. Movement means life. Then you notice something odd. On the ceiling above you, thin icicles have formed long transparent spikes, reaching down like glass fangs. One hangs directly above where you slept. A single droplet trembles on its tip, then falls square onto your cheek. You shiver instinctively. The water is freezing. You wipe your face, glance up again, and whisper, "Guess I'm under attack." The men nearby grin. Humor again, fragile as those icicles. By midday, the cave smells like wet wool, stale breath, and old iron. You start to forget what fresh air feels like. When you close your eyes, you can almost smell pine trees and smoke from real wood. Fire's memories so vivid, they sting. But when you open them, it's always the same gray world, the same dripping music, the same damp air wrapping around you like a wet sheet. Historians argue about whether caves like this preserved life or destroyed sanity. Some soldiers described them as protective wombs of the mountain, while others swore the darkness drove men mad. You can believe both. The cave gives you life, but it also swallows time. Later in the afternoon, the corporal orders everyone to move deeper inside to stretch your legs, as if that's a thing that still exists. You shuffle along the uneven floor, boots squelching in mud that's somehow both frozen and wet. At one bend, you spot patches of green moss, faintly luminous in the dark. The sight stops you. Something living. You crouch down, touch it gently. It's soft and cold. You call Tomas over. "Look at this," you whisper. He smiles faintly. "Guess nature didn't surrender either." You nod. Good company, then. You both linger there a moment too long, soaking in the miracle of color. It's strange how a smear of green can make your chest ache. Back in the main chamber, the corporal announces shift changes. "You'll take the second watch tonight." You groan but nod. Someone has to make sure the snow doesn't seal you in completely. You've seen it happen before, whole squads entombed alive when the entrance collapsed. Evening creeps in. The mist thickens again, glowing softly in candlelight. Shadows move like ghosts through the haze. Someone begins humming a habit now, instinctive, soothing. The tune rises and falls with the wind, blending until you can't tell which sound is human. Before sleeping, you adjust your straw bedding, brushing off ice flakes. You lie down, eyes tracing the rippling vapor on the ceiling. For a moment, you imagine you're underwater, floating in a quiet sea. The thought is oddly peaceful, and then, just before sleep takes you, you whisper to yourself, "If the mountain is alive, let it keep dreaming, and let me dream with it." Outside, the wind sighs through the snowdrift soft, this time almost kind. You don't know how long you've been asleep, minutes, hours, maybe days, but you wake to the sound of something unmistakably human, snoring. Not one man, but many. A deep, uneven chorus of exhaustion filling every corner of the cave. It rises and falls like the sea, layered with the occasional cough, wheeze, or muttered dream. You lie still, listening. The noise should be irritating, but it isn't. It's oddly comforting proof that everyone's still alive. Each rasping breath is a heartbeat of the unit, a sign that the cold hasn't won. You pull your scarf tighter and roll onto your side. Your cheek presses against damp straw. The smell is atrocious, but your body doesn't care anymore. Your brain has made peace with filth. You close your eyes and try to join the snoring symphony, but your mind refuses to quiet down. It wanders to strange places. You imagine the sound traveling through the tunnels, reaching the outside world, echoing across the snow like the hum of a sleeping beast. You wonder if the enemy ever heard that dozing soldiers rumbling like an underground engine and thought, "No, they can't all still be alive down there." Tomas stirs beside you, rubbing his face. "Can't sleep," he whispers. You shake your head. "Too noisy." He smirks. "You'll miss it when they're quiet." He's right. Silence in war doesn't mean peace. It means someone stopped breathing. Historians later described how soldiers developed strange habits when forced into close confinement. Some began snoring louder on purpose, believing the sound kept spirits, rats, or despair itself away. Others counted snores like rosary beads to lull themselves to sleep. You grin faintly at the thought. Maybe every snore is a prayer you didn't know you were saying. The corporal shifts in his corner, muttering orders in his sleep. His voice cracks, half-formed commands tumbling from memory. Form line, flank left, hold fire. It's the same nightmare every soldier carries. Even asleep, the war gives no mercy. You sit up slowly, brushing frost off your sleeves. The candle stub beside you has burned down to a puddle of wax. Its smoke curls upward, vanishing into the dark like a tired ghost. The air is thick, heavy with breath and sweat. You strike a match to light another candle, shielding the tiny flame with your hand. For a moment, you see all their faces rough, cracked, unshaven, glistening with condensation. Men reduced to elements, bone, steam, and sleep. A soft chuckle escapes your lips. It's absurd. 10 men packed into a stone pocket, each one vibrating with exhaustion, sounding like an orchestra of clogged chimneys. You close your eyes again and imagine it as music. The percussion of coughs, the low hum of wheezes, a solo snore swelling proudly, followed by a chorus response. If someone had a violin, it'd almost be art. Then you hear something else, a slow scraping from the back of the cave. You freeze. The sound is subtle but distinct, not rock shifting, not dripping water. Something moving. You nudge Tomas. He groans awake. "What?" "Listen," you whisper. You both hold your breath. The noise continues, a faint rustle, then a pause. Probably an animal. You hope it's an animal. The corporal stirs, blinking groggily. "What's going on?" You gesture toward the darkness. "Something back there." He squints into the gloom, then sighs. Rat or wind, go back to sleep. You nod, but you don't. Not yet. You stare into the black until your eyes start inventing shapes. A flicker of movement, a shifting shadow, maybe it's just your brain playing tricks. Finally, exhaustion wins. You slump back down, pulling the blanket to your chin. The scraping fades, replaced once more by the steady rhythm of breathing. Time dissolves. You drift in and out of half-dreams. Snowfields glowing blue under moonlight. A hand reaching out from beneath the ice. A radio voice whispering names you can't place. You wake, drift, wake again. The cave becomes a blur of light and dark. Inhale and exhale. Presence and absence. At some point, someone starts murmuring a lullaby. You recognize it as Ukrainian, though you don't understand the words. It's slow and gentle, almost a hum. The sound floats through the cave like a fog, wrapping itself around the snoring chorus. The two merge until they sound inseparable, men and music breathing together. Later, historians would write that soldiers in extreme cold sometimes synchronized their breathing during sleep, instinctively conserving warmth by matching rhythms. You never read that study, but you live it. You can feel it now, the air pulsing in time with your chest, the rise and fall of lungs that refuse to surrender. You drift again, half-conscious, thinking how strange it is to find comfort in noise. Outside, artillery may thunder, wind may scream, but here, it's the human soundtrack that keeps you sane. Before you finally fall asleep, you whisper something small to yourself, a promise, maybe, or a joke. If I start snoring louder than the rest, don't wake me. It means I made it through another night. And then you do. You slip under, carried by that peculiar harmony of exhaustion, men dreaming, breathing, and surviving together in the mountain's chest. When morning comes, if you can call this dim gray hour morning, the air is thick with the smell of oil, smoke, and human breath. The cave has become a lung again, wheezing gently, exhaling mist. Someone is chewing something hard. The sound echoes, unnervingly loud. You open your eyes, blinking through the haze. Tomas sits cross-legged near the dying candle, gnawing at what looks like a piece of wood. Bread, he mutters, with his mouth full, frozen stiff. Could hammer nails with it. You grin sleepily. Try not to break your teeth. He shrugs and keeps chewing, jaw muscles working like pistons. You fumble for your own rations, a tin of sausage, unopenable by ordinary means. You wedge it under your boot heel and press until the metal creaks. The lid finally pops with a small hiss. Inside, the sausage is gray and solid, shining faintly with frozen fat. You poke it with your knife, chip off a sliver, and hold it between your teeth until your body heat softens it. Historians later wrote that soldiers learned to cook their meals with body heat alone, tucking tins inside coats, or holding them under armpits for hours. It was absurd but effective. You decide to try it. You slip the tin inside your jacket, right over your heart. It's a ridiculous symbol, but may be appropriate. The corporal passes around a canteen half full of melted snow. Everyone takes a sip, savoring the lukewarm taste of minerals and rust. Breakfast of champions. Someone jokes. Champions of what? Another answers. Freezing. The laughter is weak, but genuine. Even humor burns calories now. Yet you all spend them freely. You look around and see the cave differently this morning. The walls, slick with frost, sparkle faintly like distant galaxies. Icicles hang like chandeliers. It's beautiful, you think, in the way a blade is beautiful, sharp, cold, and indifferent. Outside, the wind moans faintly, carrying the sound of distant artillery. You count the seconds between rumbles far enough to ignore, close enough to remember. You wonder if the men firing those guns are eating the same frozen bread right now. Tomas finishes chewing and starts tapping his tin cup with a spoon, softly at first, then rhythmically. It echoes off the stone like a slow drumbeat. Another soldier joins in, humming under his breath. The sound spreads, filling the cave. Music again, the one luxury no one can ration. But the moment breaks when the corporal speaks. We need more water. Melt snow, carefully. You sigh and pull your helmet off. It's dented, scratched, ugly, but it'll hold snow. You crawl toward the entrance, scoop in a few handfuls of white powder, and bring it back. You set it near a candle stub, watching as it slowly collapses into puddles. Tomas leans over, looks like soup. You smirk. The gourmet menu expands daily. Tomorrow we add snowflakes and call it seasoning. You laugh quietly, but the sound catches in your throat. The air is too dry, too heavy. A historian once wrote that humor during these retreats wasn't just morale, was triage for the soul. Without laughter, men froze faster. You believe it. The jokes are thin armor, but armor nonetheless. When the snow finally melts, the corporal distributes it evenly, one sip per man. The water is barely above freezing, and yet it feels luxurious. You close your eyes as it slides down your throat. It burns in a way that almost feels warm after the meager meal. You all sit in silence. The kind of silence that isn't empty, it's heavy with shared understanding. You've stopped pretending this is temporary. The cave isn't a stopover anymore. It's home now, until something worse finds you. You pull your tin from under your coat. The sausage inside has softened slightly. You cut a piece and eat it slowly, imagining flavor that isn't there. You think of your mother's kitchen, of frying onions, of bread still warm from the oven. You can almost smell it. But when you open your eyes, the cave steals the illusion away. Outside, snow starts again. You can hear it ticking softly against the rock. The rhythm is calming. You lie back, staring at the ceiling. Water drips from an icicle onto your forehead. You let it. The cold sting feels almost pleasant compared to everything else. Tomas nudges you. You ever think about what we'll eat if supplies run out? You chuckle. Don't start. No, really. The Germans used to say they boiled their boots. Maybe we should. Then we'd be barefoot and hungry. You cut in. Terrible idea. He shrugs. So was this war. You don't reply. Hours crawl by. The air grows thicker with smoke and human breath. You start to feel the walls closing in. Each drop from the ceiling sounds louder, sharper, almost deliberate. The mountain seems to be keeping time again. Historians still debate how soldiers survived the monotony of waiting, how the mind adapts to endless repetition when death lurks outside. Some suggest that boredom itself became the enemy. You understand now. The cold doesn't kill you first. The hours do. As evening falls, the corporal gives the word. 1 candle tonight. That's it. He guards the match like gold, striking it only when everyone's watching. The tiny flame flares to life, illuminating 10 faces hollowed by hunger and fatigue. You sit in the circle of light, breaking the silence with a whisper. Imagine a steak. Just imagine it. Someone groans. Cruel. Medium rare, you add, with butter melting on top. The whole cave bursts into laughter. Even the corporal smiles. It's the first time you've all laughed together. The laughter fades into sighs. Someone hums again. The candle flickers. Outside, snow keeps falling. Silent as ashdot, you close your eyes, letting your body sag into the straw. You don't know if you'll dream or if the mountain will simply press you into sleep. Either way, it doesn't matter. For a few minutes, you're full not with food, but with something far rarer out here, warmth that comes from each other. When the cave ceiling cracks for the first time, you think it's thunder, a low groan, then a sharp snap that echoes like rifle fire. Everyone freezes mid. The candle flame trembles. Dust sifts from above, swirling through the mist like brown snow. Then silence again. The corporal lifts his head, eyes narrow. "That wasn't thunder," he says quietly. You stare upward. A jagged line has appeared in the ice coating the ceiling, snaking across like a vein of lightning, frozen mid. The slow drip of water from the icicles has stopped. Even the mountain seems to be holding its breath. Tomas whispers, "You think it'll hold?" You shrugged, trying for calm. "Depends who built it, God or engineers." He smirks nervously. "We're doomed either way." You all listen. A faint creak, then another crack. It sounds like the rock itself is flexing, alive and angry. A few men grab their gear instinctively, as though helmets and rifles can stop geology. Historians still argue about how safe those caves really were. Some memoirs claim they collapsed often, entombing whole squads. Others say the danger was exaggerated, a fear magnified by nerves and echo. But when you hear stone moving above your head, debate doesn't help. You just know you're one bad vibration away from eternity. The corporal stands slowly, his breath clouding the air. "No fires," he mutters, "no sound, not a word." You nod and motion to Tomas to extinguish the candle. Darkness swallows the chamber instantly. It's absolute, so thick, you can feel it pressing against your eyes. The only light now comes from faint blue veins of frost glowing near the ceiling. They shimmer faintly, alive in their own ghostly rhythm. Minutes pass, or hours. You can't tell anymore. The cold deepens. Every sound becomes enormous, a shifting boot, a quiet sniffle. Your heartbeat pounding like artillery inside your chest. Then, suddenly, a drop of freezing water lands on your nose. You flinch. It's followed by another, then another. The ceiling starts dripping again, but faster this time. The fissure has turned into a leak. "Get to the wall," the corporal hisses. Everyone scrambles backward, pressing flat against the rock. You can't see them, but you hear the shuffle of boots, the rustle of fabric. You crouch low, covering your head instinctively. Another crack, louder. A chunk of ice breaks, loose, and smashes onto the ground where you'd been sitting moments ago. The sound is deafening in the confined space. Shards scatter across the floor like glass marbles. Someone curses under his breath. For a few seconds, nothing moves. Then nothing else happens. The mountain holds. You exhale shakily, realizing you've been holding your breath for what feels like forever. Tomas mutters, "Guess it's not our time yet." You manage a weak smile. The cave's merciful tonight. Still, no one goes back to sleep. The danger might have passed, but trust doesn't return that easily. The corporal sits near the collapsed section, watching the ceiling like a man guarding a sleeping dragon. You pull your blanket around you and listen to the dripping again. It's different, now faster, irregular, like the cave is sweating under pressure. Historians later noted that trapped soldiers sometimes developed irrational attachments to their shelters. They began speaking about them as living things. "She's angry today. The cave's tired. The ceiling's breathing heavy." You used to laugh at such superstition. Not anymore. Hours crawl by. The storm outside howls louder, rattling the rocks. You imagine tons of snow pressing against the mountain, squeezing it like a fist. The cave moans again, a deep, almost human sound. You whisper under your breath, Easy now. Hold together. We're guests, not intruders. Tomas glances over, talking to the mountain. Someone's got to keep it calm. He nods solemnly, as though it makes perfect sense. Eventually, the corporal gives the all clear. Light one candle, he says. Careful. The tiny flame blooms again, and the horror softens. The shadows return to familiar shapes. You look at the fallen chunk of icets the size of a helmet, fractured into pieces that glitter like crystal. You pick one up, turning it in your fingers. Inside the clear mass, a single dark strand of hair is trapped, human, frozen there like a fossil. You show it to Tomas. His expression falters. Maybe from before us, he says. Someone else took shelter here, or didn't make it out, you whisper. The thought lingers like smoke. You set the ice down gently and pull your knees to your chest. The corporal tries to distract everyone. Who remembers home? He asks softly. It's not really a question, it's medicine. One man talks about his mother's orchard, the smell of apples in autumn. Another mentions the noise of trams in Budapest, the way metal screeched against rails. Tomas adds quietly, the sound of my sister's piano. She played terribly, but I'd pay anything to hear it now. You close your eyes. I remember rain, you murmur. The way it sounded on the tin roof. Warm rain, not this. Everyone nods. The silence that follows isn't sad, it's shared. The memories are small fires, burning quietly in the frozen dark. The dripping slows again. The crack above no longer expands. The mountain seems to have settled. Soothed by your stillness, you lie back down on your straw bedding, tracing the cracks on the wall with your eyes. For the first time, you realize the pattern looks almost deliberate, like veins in marble or roots in soil. The mountain isn't breaking apart, you think. It's just reminding you it's alive. Before sleep comes, you whisper to the ceiling, half prayer, half lullaby. If you fall, fall gently. If you hold, hold strong. The only answer is the soft drip of melting ice and the slow, even breathing of men who've stopped pretending they're unbreakable. Morning is announced, not by sunlight, there is none, but by movement. Someone shuffles past, boots crunching on brittle frost, and the scent of smoke from the candle's last breath still hangs in the air. You blink awake, eyes crusted, and find Tomas already sitting up, rubbing his temples. Another night survived, he mutters. Feels like cheating death on installment. You stretch slowly, each joint popping. The straw crackles beneath you, half frozen, half. The drip from the ceiling continues its rhythms, steady, indifferent. You realize that even fear has its schedule here. The cave cracks, the cave drips, the cave breathes, and you wake up again. Routine, the purest form of survival. You reach for your pack, now a damp sack of regret. Inside are three things that still matter. A lighter that doesn't work, a photograph curled from moisture, and a letter from home. The ink has run, but the shape of handwriting remains. Blue veins across yellow paper. You don't need to read it, you've memorized it. Every word echoes in your head like a prayer. Tomas leans closer, curious. You keep that dry. You shrugged, mostly. He smiles faintly. I burned mine. Better that way. Words make you cold. Mine makes me warm. You answer. It reminds me someone thought I'd live. The others begin to stir. The corporal gives a quiet order. Air out the entrance. It's a ritual now each morning. A few men chip away at the snow blocking the mouth of the cave. You crawl over to help, clawing at the packed white wall. The cold stings your fingertips instantly, but the light that leaks through a pale, thin gold feels like touching heaven. Historians later wrote that soldiers trapped in mountain retreats often followed strict routines, not out of discipline, but sanity. Washing rifles, clearing snow, even shaving with dull razors, small acts that reminded them they were still men, not creatures. You see that truth now. The routine is oxygen for the mind. When the opening widens enough, you can see the world outside again. White ridges, snow swirling like smoke, trees burdened under ice. It's silent, perfect, deadly. You stare at it for a long time, your breath fogging the view. For a moment, you imagine stepping out and just walking. No orders, no retreat. Just footsteps fading into the storm until you vanish completely. Don't get poetic on me, Tomas says, breaking the spell. Come back inside before you freeze mid-sentence. You laugh quietly and obey, back near the fireless hearth. The corporal pulls something from his coat, a small stub of candle wrapped in paper. Last one, he says. The men look at it like treasure. You watch as he unwraps it slowly, reverently. He doesn't light, it just holds it, reminding you all that there's still something left to burn. Tonight, he says, we save it for night. No one argues. You sit down again, rubbing your hands for warmth. The movement sends flakes of ice falling from your sleeves. Around you, the others begin the morning's silent choreography, sharpening knives, rewrapping feet in rags, wiping condensation from rifles. The clinking of metal on rock becomes a soft percussion, steady and grounding. After an hour, the corporal allows voices again. Tomas speaks first. When we get out of this, he says, I'm never sleeping indoors again, to warm. Someone else laughs. I'll sleep under a stove if I have to. You smile. Let's agree to meet somewhere halfway under a roof, but with a draft. The laughter lingers longer than it should. Humor feels dangerous. It reminds you of life, and life is fragile here. Later, you take your turn on watch. You sit by the entrance, staring at the storm outside. The snow has eased, but the wind still sings through the valley like a far-off choir. You can almost make out notes in it, long, mournful tones that rise and fall. You wonder if the mountains themselves have voices, carrying stories of every soul they've buried. Historians still debate how soldiers manage to write or think clearly in conditions like this. Some diaries recovered decades later describe hallucinations, voices whispering from the ice, songs that seemed to come from the rock. You used to doubt such tales. Not anymore. After enough nights like these, the line between echo and spirit blurs. As the day wanes, the corporal orders a head count. 10 men, still 10. You nod silently, relieved. You've begun to expect subtraction. When night returns, you all gather again. The last candle is lit. The flame trembles bravely, painting gold halos around every face. The corporal says nothing. He doesn't need to. The light speaks for him, fragile, defiant, alive. You take the photograph from your pack and hold it near the glow. The faces in it, your parents, your sister, blur from condensation. For a heartbeat, you imagine they're breathing too, exhaling the same mist that surrounds you. Tomas leans over your shoulder. They look warm, he says quietly. They are, you reply. The candle burns shorter. The flame dips lower. You all stare until it flickers once, twice, and dies with a tiny sigh. Darkness again, complete, consuming. But this time, it doesn't feel empty. You can still see the afterimage of light burned behind your eyes, proof that warmth existed, even for a moment. You lie back, pull the damp blanket up to your chin, and whisper, tomorrow, we'll dig a little deeper. Maybe find a spring. You don't know if anyone hears. You just need to believe someone will dot. The wind outside moans one last time, then fades into quiet. Inside, 10 men breathe in sync, the sound like slow waves against stone. You dream of sunlight, not just warmth, but light, golden and clean, the kind that lays over fields and turns every blade of grass into glass. You're walking through it barefoot, hearing birds instead of artillery. You almost believe it's real until the ground beneath you shifts, and you wake to the damp press of straw under your cheek. The cave breathes its same cold air, steady and gray. You're not disappointed. You're just used to it now. The dream was the strange part, not this. Someone nearby groans awake. It's Mikhail, the older corporal, who once joked you'd all turn into statues. His breath rattles like pebbles in a tin cup. You glance over and see frost gathering in his beard. Still with us, you murmur. He nods slowly, barely. Then, after a pause, but I dreamed of soup. You smile faintly. That's how you know it was a dream. You were eating. A few men laugh, weakly, breaking the morning's silence. The sound is thin but good. It reminds you that life, though fragile, still insists on existing here. You sit up, rubbing your neck. The air tastes faintly metallic today, like someone's been sharpening knives. Maybe it's just your imagination, or maybe the cave itself is eroding, stone dust sifting into your lungs. You cough softly, and the sound bounces back 100-fold, echoing through the narrow tunnels like applause. The corporal calls out hoarsely, "Check the ceiling." It's routine now. 2 men crawl around with a lantern, inspecting the frost seams for new cracks. The light dances across jagged rock and shadow, making the cave seem alive again, shifting between monster and guardian with every flicker. You press your palms together, rubbing to spark some heat, and listen to the murmured conversation, still solid. For now, historians later found soldiers' reports describing these cave checks as a kind of ritual, part engineering, part superstition. Men who couldn't trust the sky anymore learned to trust the mountain instead. You think of that now and wonder if this ritual comforts the mountain as much as it comforts you. After the inspection, Tomas reaches into his pack and pulls out a small scrap of paper. "I've been writing something," he says quietly. You raise an eyebrow. "What?" "A letter." He shakes his head. "A recipe. For what?" "Frozen despair." "For stew," he answers, deadpan. "The kind my grandmother made. Potatoes, carrots, onions, beef. Enough salt to make you cry." You chuckle. "We don't have any of that." He shrugs. "That's what makes it valuable. Memory cuisine." The others perk up, smiling faintly as he reads from the scrap. It's absurd, but you all listen like starving students. He describes boiling broth until it smells of childhood, adding bread crusts until they turn soft. By the end, you swear you can almost taste it. Humor melts despair faster than any fire. You thank him quietly when he finishes. As the day drags on, you find your mind drifting again, this time not to home, but to warmth itself. You try to remember what heat feels like. Sunlight on the back of your neck, a steaming cup held between 2 hands. But memory doesn't hold temperature well. You can only imagine its color. Gold, you decide. Warmth must be gold. You wonder if the men outside, those still fighting, advancing, or retreating, ever think of you. The forgotten ones, buried under snow and stone. Probably not. But that's all right. The cave has become its own little world, its own country. No borders, no sides. Just breathing, waiting, surviving. The corporal announces another storm is coming. You can hear it already, a distant hum, low and steady. like a giant sharpening its claws on the ridges above. Snow will seal you in deeper tonight, maybe completely. You take out the photograph again, now wrinkled and soft from damp. The faces are fading. You trace the outlines gently with your finger, committing them to memory before they vanish. Tomas glances over and says, "You look like a priest holding a relic." You smile. "Maybe I am." Historians still debate whether faith or any kind of ritual played a larger role in soldiers' endurance during winter retreats. Many diaries mention prayer. Others describe meditation, counting breaths, or whispering to the mountain itself. You don't know what you believe anymore, but the act of hoping feels holy enough. That night, you don't sleep right away. The others drift off quickly, one by one, until the cave fills again with the snoring symphony. You lie awake, listening to the storm outside building strength. The wind howls like an animal denied entry. At one point, the sound changes less of a howl, more of a hum, deep, continuous, almost musical. You think it might be your imagination, until Tomas stirs beside you and whispers, "You hear that?" You nod. "It's singing." He tilts his head. The cave, or the wind, does it matter? You both listen until your eyelids droop. The melody, if it can be called, that seems to shift between pitches, weaving through the air like a lullaby sung by the earth itself. Historians later wrote that many soldiers in winter shelters described acoustic hallucinations, music from the mountains. Some blamed exhaustion, some thought it divine. You choose to believe it's kindness, nature, giving you one small mercy for staying alive this long. The sound continues as you drift off, your breath sinking once again with the men around you, until the whole cave seems to breathe in harmony. The storm rages, but inside, you sleep not from safety, but from surrender. And in that fragile rest, you dream again of sunlight. You wake to scratching, not the kind that means collapse or cracking stone, but quick, skittering sounds. Something alive. You blink in the darkness, unsure if you're dreaming. Then it comes again. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Tiny claws on rock, rats. Tomas mutters sleepily from beside you, pulling his blanket over his head. Our midnight guests. You sit up slowly. The air is damp and faintly sour. You can smell them before you see them. Then your eyes adjust, and you spot two, maybe three small shapes darting across the cave, floor black glimmers against gray frost. One climbs onto a pile of discarded ration tins, nose twitching. The corporal stirs. "Leave them," he whispers. "At least they're eating something." You grin in the dark. "Maybe we should start charging rent." Everyone chuckles softly, though the sound dies quickly. There's a strange comfort in these rats. They're proof that life can still exist here. Historians found reports from soldiers describing rats in caves as unofficial mascots. Men fed them crumbs, gave them names, swore they brought luck. Others saw them as omen symbols of rot and death. You're not sure which side you're on. You just know they make the silence less lonely. You watch one pause near your boot, its whiskers quivering. For a second, it looks up at you, black eyes glinting in the dim light. You whisper, "You're braver than I am," and it scurries away. Then comes the itching. You scratch your neck, your sleeve, the back of your hand. Fleas again. You groan softly. Here they come. Tomas grimaces. They're colder than the snow. How do they survive? They feed on optimism, you mutter. Then we're doomed. You both laugh, then keep scratching. There's no point pretending anymore. Everyone's infested. The corporal once ordered everyone to boil their shirts in melted snow, but that only created damp shirts and angry fleas. Now you just endure it. The scratching of rats and men becomes the morning's rhythm. You almost smile at the absurdity. Humanity reduced to scratching and breathing in sync with rodents. You pick up your canteen, empty again. No surprise. You crawl toward the entrance to scoop more snow, careful not to disturb the sleeping men. The air outside is sharp, painfully bright. The storm has paused for once, revealing a still, silver landscape. You fill your helmet with snow and pause to stare out at the valley below. Everything is silent. No movement, no smoke, no sound of war. Just untouched white dot. It's breathtaking and somehow cruel. You whisper to yourself, beautiful places make the worst graves. Then you carry the snow back inside. When you return, you see one of the younger soldiers carol kneeling near the back wall, mumbling something. You move closer and realize he's talking to a rat. "Eat," he says softly, placing a crumb of hardtack on the floor. "Go on, eat." The rat sniffs, grabs the crumb, and vanishes. Carol smiles faintly. Better him than me. You sit beside him, stirring snow in a tin cup to melt it faster. "You're generous for a starving man," he shrugs. "I like the company." Historians later recorded that isolation made men in these winter caves cling to any sign of life. Some kept small lizards, others snowbirds that wandered in for crumbs. In one diary, a soldier even claimed a rat would sit on his shoulder during meals, as if sharing grace. You can understand it. After weeks surrounded only by the sound of your own heartbeat, even a rat becomes a friend. Hours pass. The air grows thicker, heavier, full of slow-moving vapor. The cave's ceiling drips again, but faster this time. The constant plink-plink blends with the soft squeaks of the rats, creating a strange lullaby. Then dash out of nowhere, one of the men shouts. Everyone jolts. "It bit me." He shakes his hand furiously, and you see a rat drop to the ground and sprint away. The soldier's finger bleeds slightly, a dark spot already freezing on the skin. The corporal crawls over, inspecting it under candlelight. "You'll live," he grunts. "At least something wants to eat you." The others laugh a bit too hard, a bit too long. The sound echoes strangely off the rock, half mad, but laughter here is medicine, no matter how bitter the taste. As calm returns, you notice the faint hum again, the wind outside, threading through cracks in the rock. The rats pause, listening to. For a moment, all life in the cave, human and otherwise, freezes. Then the sound fades, replaced once more by breathing and scratching. You find yourself thinking of warmth again, but not the kind from sunlight or blankets. You think of human warmth, the simple heat of proximity. You glance around and realize that every man is huddled a little closer now, unconsciously drawn together like coals keeping one another alive. Historians still debate whether close sleeping arrangements helped or harmed soldiers during such retreats. Some say body heat saved countless lives. Others claim it spread disease faster. Both are true. You just know that when the man beside you breathes, you feel it tanned. That means you're not alone yet. Later that night, you lie awake again. The rats are quiet now, perhaps asleep, perhaps plotting. The fleas have grown lazy. The only sound is dripping water and steady snoring. You close your eyes and imagine the rats curled up somewhere warm in their own tiny colony, safe in their own version of the cave. It makes you smile. Survival isn't a contest here, it's a shared project. You murmur into the dark, "Good night, gentlemen," and "Good night, rats." And though no one answers, the silence feels gentler somehow, like the mountain, for once, approves of the company it keeps. The next day begins with thunder. Not from the sky, there's no sky down here, but from somewhere far beyond the valley, muffled by snow and stone. At first, it sounds like distant avalanches. Then you realize artillery, faint, irregular, yet unmistakable. The corporal listens with a frown. Too far for mortar, he mutters. Could be the front shifting. You exchange glances with Tomas. The idea of movement of battlefields, almost impossible now. The world outside has become a rumor. But this sound, dull and steady, means the war hasn't forgotten you. The ground trembles faintly, shaking frost from the ceiling. The air seems to pulse with the rhythm of explosions, distant but insistent. You imagine flashes of orange light cutting across the horizon. Unseen behind the blizzard, someone whispers, "Maybe they're coming for us." The corporal answers, "They're coming for someone." Historians still argue whether sound travels differently through ice and rock. Some say the mountain amplifies it, turning faraway gunfire into thunder that seems next door. Others insist that under heavy snow, everything becomes a ghost of its true volume. You don't know the science, you only know that every vibration feels like the earth remembering death. You sit with your back against the wall, trying to guess the distance by sound. Maybe 10 kilometers, maybe 100. You've lost all sense of scale. Time and space have melted together like the cave's walls dripping, blurring, reshaping. Tomas leans close. You think they'll find us. You shake your head slowly. They'll find the mountain long before they find what's inside it. You both fall silent again. The faint explosions continue. A grim lullaby reminding you that the war still breathes beyond your stone shelter. By noon, the tremors stop. The world above goes quiet once more. But the silence that follows feels heavier than before, as if the mountain itself is waiting for an aftershock. Then you hear something new. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Boots, snow, outside. Every head turns toward the cave entrance. The corporal raises a hand. Quiet, you hold your breath. The sound comes closer, slow. Deliberate steps. Could be friend, could be foe. The tension is electric. A shadow flickers across the snowy glow at the mouth of the cave. Someone raises a rifle. You do too. Heart pounding. Then, a voice. Anyone inside. The accent is Eastern, maybe Polish. The corporal hesitates, then calls back. Who's asking? A pause. Then partisan patrol. We're looking for survivors. Relief hits like a wave. You and Tomas exchange wide-eyed looks. Real people, real voices. You crawl toward the entrance, half afraid it's a hallucination. But the figures that appear are no ghostly men, bundled in patched coats, rifles slung low. Their faces are as pale as yours. The corporal steps forward. We're retreating unit remnants, he says. 10 of us left. One of the newcomers nods grimly. We've seen others frozen in the ravine. He glances inside. You're lucky this cave held. Historians later confirmed that partisan groups often combed mountain passes after battles, searching for stranded troops, sometimes to rescue, sometimes to disarm. You don't know which one this is yet, but right now they look like salvation. They hand over a small bundle of bread and dried meat. The smell alone nearly breaks you. It's rough, stale, almost tasteless, but your hands tremble as you take it. Tomas bites into his piece immediately. Your angels, he mumbles through crumbs. One partisan smiles faintly. We're just cold men with better boots. They warn you that the valley is crawling with enemy scouts. You'll need to stay put until night, one says. Then move east. There's shelter and food down there. The corporal nods. We'll rest. travel when the wind hides our steps. As quickly as they appeared, the partisans vanish into the snow. The sound of their boots fades into nothing. You're left staring at the entrance again, unsure if they were real, but the bread in your hand says they were. For the first time in weeks, you eat until you feel full, not satisfied, just filled. The bread scratches your throat, but it's solid, grounding. You can almost feel your body remembering what nourishment is. Afterward, everyone sits quietly. No one speaks of leaving yet, but hope moves through the group like a warm current. Even the air seems lighter. You pull out your photograph again and hold it near the candlelight. The faces seem brighter now, less like ghosts. You whisper, "We might actually get out." Tomas nudges you, "Don't jinx it." Historians later wrote that hope in these winter refuges was a double-edged sword. It gave men the strength to move, but also made the waiting unbearable. You can feel that truth already. The cave, once protective, now feels smaller, hungrier, as if it resents the thought of you leaving. Evening falls. The distant thunder of artillery begins again, faint but steady. You pull your coat tighter, listening. Every boom sounds farther away this time. Maybe it's imagination. Maybe the front really is moving east. As you lie back on your straw bedding, Tomas whispers, "What will you do when you get out?" You think for a moment. "Sleep," you say. "Somewhere that doesn't echo." He smiles. "You dream too small. Small dreams survive the cold." He chuckles softly, and soon the sound of his laughter blends into the mountain's quiet hum. You close your eyes, clutching the thought of movement, of direction, of after. Outside, snow begins to fall again, gently this time. It seals the entrance in soft, white silence, as if the mountain itself is tucking you in. You don't sleep deeply that night. The thought of rescue, of movement turns your mind restless. Every time you close your eyes, you imagine footsteps in the snow, the partisans' faces, the way they said, "We'll meet again." The words loop like a song you can't stop humming. When you do drift off, it isn't long. You wake to cold light filtering through the entrance. The snow has sealed most of it, leaving only a faint silver triangle on the floor. The air is heavy with the smell of damp leather, smoke, and breath. You stretch and realize something's wrong. The corporal hasn't moved. His shape under the blanket is too still. "Tomas," you whisper, nudging him awake. You both crawl closer. The corporal's face is pale gray, lips blue. His hands are still clasped together, as if frost crystals line his eyelashes like glittered dot. No one speaks for a long time. Then Tomas exhales softly. He went quietly. You nod, throat tight. Better than most. There's a quiet dignity in death here. No ceremony, no uniforms, no words, just stillness. You pull the blanket over his face and sit back against the wall. The others watch, hollow-eyed but calm. Death has become as common as snow. Historians later debated the psychological threshold that let men endure this kind of loss without collapsing. Some said it was detachment, others called it discipline. You think it's simpler than that. Survival doesn't leave room for mourning. Still, you can't look away. The corporal had been the cave's voice, the one who kept rules alive when chaos wanted in. Now there's only silence, Tomas mutters. He'd hate to be buried here. You manage a faint smile. Then we'll wait until we move. Let him see daylight one more time. Everyone agrees. You cover him properly and turn back to the fireless center of the cave. The air feels heavier now, as though even the mountain knows what's changed. Outside, the storm is quieter but not gone. You can hear the wind dragging its nails across the rocks. whispering through cracks. You imagine it calling names. Maybe his dot you eat quietly, each bite of bread stiff and flavorless. The taste of grief mixes with the taste of salt. It's the same now, everything is the same. Then, far off, the faint sound of gunfire. Short bursts, sharp, distinct. You glance toward the entrance. Partisans. Tomas whispers, "Could be you," answer, though your stomach tightens. The gunfire stops quickly, too quickly. Then nothing. The mountain swallows the sound whole. Historians later noted that partisan patrols often vanished in blizzards, or skirmishes that never reached record books. Men lost between snow and silence. You know this even before you admit it. No one's coming tonight. Maybe not ever. Hours pass. The light outside fades into dull blue, then black again. The air inside feels colder, emptier. Without the corporal's low voice giving orders, time loses its edges. The cave becomes an endless loop of breath and thought. Tomas sits near the wall, tracing lines in the frost with a stick. You watch his hand move back and forth, carving the same pattern over and over. "What are you writing?" you ask. He looks up, eyes unfocused. "Nothing, just keeping my fingers busy." You nod. "Good idea." You take your knife and start carving into the rock beside you. The blade barely scratches the surface, but you keep at it. Eventually, the shape forms a small sun, crude but bright in your imagination. "A reminder," you whisper. Tomas glances at it and smiles weakly. "Think it'll shine through stone. Maybe someday," you say, "if the mountain melts." He laughs quietly. The sound echoes around the chamber, bouncing back, softer, smaller, like a child's laugh returning home. Night deepens. The temperature drops sharply. Even your breath feels brittle. You huddle close to Tomas, the two of you sharing what little warmth remains. You whisper memories to each other, not of war, but of ordinary things. Warm kitchens, schoolyards, summer rain. "Remember the smell of bread when it just starts to brown," Tomas says. You close your eyes, and butter melting on top. He smiles. "We'll eat like kings when this ends." The phrase, "when this ends," hangs in the air. You both let it linger, fragile as the last candle flame that burned out days ago. Historians still debate whether hope prolongs life or merely sweetens the inevitable. You think it's both. Hope is oxygen. Even if it burns out, it leaves warmth behind. Sometime near midnight, the ceiling groans, again a long, deep sound, like a sigh. Everyone looks up, but no one moves. You've learned that the mountain complains constantly, like an old god turning in its sleep. You whisper to it, "We're still here. Don't forget us." The wind answers with a hollow whistle through the cracks. When you finally drift into uneasy sleep, your dreams are full of light sunlight this time, but pale and cold. You're walking uphill, following the corporal's shape through snow, his footprints glowing faintly. You call after him, but he doesn't turn. You wake with tears frozen on your cheeks. Tomas is still beside you, breathing faintly. The air smells faintly of iron again. You don't want to think about what that means. You whisper into the quiet, "Morning will come." The mountain doesn't answer. It only creaks softly, as if shifting its great weight to make room for one more dreamer beneath the ice. Morning arrives quietly, if it can still be called morning. The faint light seeping through the cave entrance feels thinner than before, blue and distant, like light from another world. The air is still, too still, heavy with the smell of old smoke and cold stone. You open your eyes slowly, hearing nothing but breathing. Tomas is already awake, sitting cross-legged beside the corporal's covered body. He's talking softly, words too low to make out. You wait until he finishes before saying anything. What did you tell him? You ask. He looks up and shrugs. That we'll take him outside today, that he shouldn't worry. You nod. Good. No one argues. You all know what has to be done. It takes nearly an hour to chip through the snow sealing the entrance. The cold outside bites hard, so sharp it makes your teeth ache. You and Tomas drag the corporal's body to the opening, wrapped in the same blanket that used to keep him alive. The snow gleams painfully white beneath the morning's weak sun. You lay him down gently. The wind catches the edge of the blanket, flapping it once like a flag. Tomas pins it with a stone. No one speaks. Historians later wrote that makeshift burials during winter retreats often took place without prayers. Words froze faster than bodies. Men believed silence was better. The mountain itself would remember. You hope that's true. You don't want to give the cold the satisfaction of stealing his name. When you step back inside, the warmth, if it can be called, that feels almost suffocating. The cave breathes differently now, heavier, like a lung half collapsed. 10 men are now 9, Tomas says softly. He looked peaceful. You nod. He was tired of being in charge. You sit together for a while, the two of you not talking. It's strange how grief changes shape here, less of a wound, more of a slow ache that seeps into the walls. The mountain absorbs everything eventually. Sound, warmth, and now memory. Later that day, someone starts humming again. The tune wavers at first, uncertain, but others join. It's the same melody that's been echoing through this place for days, the one the wind always seems to finish. You add your voice to, low and steady. For a few minutes, the cave fills with harmony, rough, uneven, but real. You catch yourself smiling, which feels almost scandalous. But that's what survival does. It sneaks joy into places where joy shouldn't fit. Afterward, Tomas looks at you. When we leave tonight, he says quietly, I'm taking something with me. You raise an eyebrow. The candle stub. He shakes his head. No, this. He points upward, toward the faintly glowing frost veins that run along the ceiling. That color. I want to remember that color. You follow his gaze. The frost reflects what little daylight sneaks through the entrance bell, blue fading into silver. It looks fragile, almost holy. Looks like the sky trapped inside stone, you say. He smiles. Exactly. Historians would later note that trapped soldiers often fixated on tiny visual details, the way frost formed, the hue of smoke, the shimmer of ice under candlelight anchors for sanity. You realize you've done the same. These small pieces of beauty are your proof that the world still exists beyond the snow. Evening arrives quietly. The storm outside has settled into a slow, whispering wind. You can almost hear the trees creaking far below. Bending under the weight of ice, you start packing what little you have. Your knife, the photograph, half a loaf of bread, hard as stone. Tomas ties his boots, checks his rifle, and mutters, if we find those partisans again, I'm hugging them. Just make sure they don't shoot you first, you say. Smiling faintly, the men gather near the entrance. No speeches, no plans, just a shared look that says enough. Waiting. Before leaving, you glance back one last time. The cave looks smaller now, the corners darker, the ceiling lower. It's not a shelter anymore, it's a memory. You whisper, thank you, and mean it. Historians still debate whether these caves were tombs or wombs, places of death or rebirth. Standing here, you decide they were both. You came as soldiers and are leaving as something else, quieter, older, maybe even grateful. Outside, the air stings your face, but it's a good kind of pain, proof that you're still here. You take one step, then another, your boots crunching through snow that glitters under starlight. The world feels vast again, terrifying and magnificent. Behind you, the cave exhales a final puff of mist, like a sigh. Then it's silent. You turn to Tomas. East. You say east. He nods. The two of you start walking. The snow glows faintly blue beneath the moon, and every step feels like an act of defiance. After a few minutes, Tomas breaks the quiet. Do you think the mountain will miss us? You smile. Maybe, but mountains don't hold grudges. Good, he says, pulling his scarf tighter. Then I'll send it a postcard. You both laugh softly. The sound carries into the dark, caught by the wind, and vanishes into the night. Behind you, the cave grows smaller until it's just a shadow in the snow, a scar in the mountain's skin, soon to be covered by the next storm. You keep walking east, one step, then another. The first thing you notice outside is how loud the world feels again. The snow crunches underfoot like brittle glass, and every step echoes down the valley. After weeks inside that muted stone lung, even the smallest sound feels enormous. You and Tomas move cautiously, shoulders hunched against the wind. The night sky is clear, so clear it almost hurts to look at. The stars above aren't twinkling. They're frozen, glittering shards pinned against black silk. For a moment, you just stop walking and stare. You'd forgotten that the world had color beyond gray. Don't stop, Tomas whispers, his voice barely carrying over the wind. We'll stiffen up if we stand still. You nod, forcing your legs to move again. The slope below the cave winds downward into a narrow pass. Somewhere beyond that, the partisans said, there's food, warmth, maybe even shelter with a roof that isn't made of stone. You can't quite picture it, but the idea alone keeps you moving. Every breath burns. The cold here is cleaner, but sharper, less suffocating than the cave's damp chill, yet somehow crueler. The air whistles through the trees, brushing over the snow like 1,000 unseen fingers. After about an hour, you stop to rest beside a fallen pine. Its trunk is buried halfway under snow, but the needles still smell faintly of resin and sap. You break a few off and hold them to your nose, inhaling deeply. The scent is sharp, alive, forested. You pass them to Tomas. He sniffs and smiles faintly. Better than any perfume. You grin. We should bottle it. OD survival. He laughs quietly, the sound turning to vapor in the cold air. Historians later wrote that after long soldiers often experienced re-entry shock. Even natural sounds whined. Birds, trees, creaking felt alien, overwhelming. You understand that now. The world seems too bright, too loud, too fast. You've been living underwater, and this is your first gasp of air. You both sit for a moment, staring at the sky. The moon glows faintly through thin clouds, bathing everything in silver. The snow looks soft from afar, but up close it's crusted and hard as glass. You run your gloved fingers across it, tracing patterns that melt under your touch. Tomas breaks the silence. Do you think anyone knows we're still alive? You shake your head. Probably not, but that's fine. The dead don't need permission to walk. He chuckles. That's dark. It's also true. You both stand again, legs trembling from fatigue. The mountain slopes steeply ahead, dotted with rocks and patches of frost-bitten brush. Each step sends a small puff of snow drifting upward, glowing in the moonlight. Halfway down, you hear it, a faint, rhythmic thump. Thump, thump. You freeze. Tomas raises a hand, tilting his head. It sounds mechanical, distant, maybe a few ridges away. Engines, he whispers. Could be trucks, you say. or tanks? Hard to tell through the snow. You crouch behind a rock, listening. The sound fades, then returns. It's hard to tell if it's real or just the mountain echoing. Eventually, it stops altogether, leaving only the whisper of wind. Probably nothing, Tomas murmurs. You nod, though unease lingers in your chest. Probably. Historians still debate how often hallucination plagued soldiers during prolonged cold exposure. Some swore they heard distant battles, bells, even laughter in the snow. Scientists later blamed it on the way sound travels through frozen air, warping distance, bending echoes. But you can't shake the feeling that the mountain still remembers every sound ever made within it, replaying them when it grows lonely. You keep walking. Your legs feel heavier with each step, the slope endless. Every few minutes, you look back up toward the cave now, just a black scar in the white mountainside. It feels strange to see it from the outside, small and unthreatening. For weeks, it had been your universe. Now, it's barely a dot. Tomas stops suddenly and crouches. Tracks, he whispers. In the moonlight, you can see them clearly. Boot prints, half filled with fresh snow, leading east. There are several sets recent, maybe less than a day old. The partisans, or someone else. You both kneel, examining them. The stride looks hurried. Some prints drag slightly, as if someone was limping. Could be them, Tomas says. They said they'd circle back. You nod, though the unease in your stomach tightens. Or it could be anyone. You follow the tracks anyway. The idea of any people, pulls you forward like a magnet. The valley narrows, the air colder still. Frost crystals swirl in the moonlight. Tiny diamonds carried by invisible hands. After another hour, you spot movement ahead. A small, dark shape against the snow. Your heart leaps until you realize it's just a tree, half buried under drift. You exhale sharply. Hope, like fire, burns quickest when oxygen's low. You and Tomas decide to rest again, ducking into the lee of a boulder. He passes you the last of the bread. You break it in half and chew slowly, your jaw aching from the effort. When you finish, you lean back and stare upward. The stars look close enough to touch. You whisper, if heaven has a door, it's probably up there. Tomas smiles faintly. Let's not knock yet. Historians often described how men emerging from months of confinement reported an almost spiritual reaction to open air, the sky becoming a kind of religion. You understand now. After all that darkness, even the cold stars feel merciful before sleeping. You both cover yourselves with snow for warmth, the trick learned from older soldiers. It's counterintuitive, but works. The snow traps heat better than wind. As you settle into the icy blanket, you realize you're smiling again. You know, Tomas murmurs, eyes half closed. If someone told me a month ago I'd call snow comfortable, I'd have hit them. You laugh softly, and now I'd thank them for the warning. The wind hums low through the valley. You close your eyes, letting its song carry you halfway between waking and dreaming. The last thought before you drift off is simple, almost childish. We made it out, and for now, that's enough. When you wake, the world has turned white again. Not the clean silver blue of moonlit snow, but the blinding, shapeless white of a new blizzard. It's everywhere above, around, inside your eyes. You can't tell sky from earth. Tomas is already half buried beside you, snow crusted over his coat and lashes. He stirs as you brush him off, still alive. You ask softly. He grins weakly. Unfortunately, you both sit up, blinking through the white haze. The storm howls, but not angrily this time. It's slower, steadier, like a tired creature breathing deeply. You can feel its rhythm in your chest. We need to move, Tomas says. Which way? East, still. Always east. You nod, but the direction means nothing now. The landscape has vanished. Only the wind gives hints, pushing at your backs. You start walking, boots sinking deep with each step. The snow squeaks underfoot, soft and deceitful, hiding rocks that jab your ankles. Historians later debated how soldiers navigated in conditions like this weather by instinct, memory, or sheer desperation. Some claimed they followed tree lines. Others used stars, though no stars are visible today. You and Tomas have only one guide, motion itself. As long as you move, you're not frozen. Hours blur into a slow trudge. The snow thickens, swallowing the world. Every few minutes, you stop to catch your breath, leaning against invisible walls of air. Your scarf is stiff with ice. Your eyebrows glitter white. The cold gnaws into you like its personal dot. Tomas stumbles, suddenly falling to his knees. You grab his arm, pulling him up. Hey, none of that. I'm fine, he mutters, though his face is pale. You're not fine, you say. No one's fine. Keep moving anyway. He nods, but you can tell he's fading. His steps lag. His words slur slightly. You know the signs too well. The cold is winning. You both spot a dark shape ahead, blurry at first, then clearer as you approach. A tree, half dead and skeletal, rising from the snow like a black bone. Its trunk is split open, hollowed by lightning or time. You glance inside. It's big enough for two, barely. Here, you say, we'll rest. You crawl into the hollow, pressing shoulder to shoulder. The wood smells faintly burnt, oddly comforting. The wind outside roars, but in here it's muffled, softer, like distant surf. Tomas leans his head back and exhales. This counts as luxury, right? You grin. 5 stars. Comes with central heating if you light it on fire. Tempting. You sit there in the dim light, the storm hissing outside. The silence between gusts feels immense, like you're sitting inside the world's slow heartbeat. You pull the last crust of bread from your pocket and hand it to him. Split it. He shakes his head. You eat, shut up, and chew. He laughs quietly and obeys. The crumbs stick to his gloves. You both eat slowly, not for hunger, but ritual. The act of chewing means you're still human. Historians later discovered notes from soldiers, describing moments exactly like this. 2 men, 1 crust, 1 silence. They called it communion without God. You can see why. There's a holiness in sharing the last thing you have. The storm eases for a moment. Through a gap in the white veil, you see movement, dark shapes far below, small as ants. At first, you think it's shadows, but then you realize people. A column moving through the valley. You squint. The shapes are too orderly to be refugees. The line snakes across the snow, slow and deliberate. Soldiers, hundreds of them. It's impossible to tell which side. Tomas sees them too. Could be ours, he whispers. Could be anyone's. You both watch as the column disappears into the fog again, leaving only tracks. The sight is oddly humbling. The world outside your cave hadn't stopped. It just kept marching without you. You think of historians again, how they'll study this war from their warm offices, tracing lines on maps, deciding which ridge belonged to whom. None of them will imagine what it smelled like inside a hollow tree at 40 below. None will know the color of silence here. Tomas leans his head against the wood. You ever think we'll tell anyone about this? You shake your head. No one would believe it. He chuckles faintly. Good. Let it stay unbelievable. The blizzard thickens again, sealing you inside the white cocoon. The tree creaks around you, but holds. You listen to its groan, the same sound the cave made when it shifted under weight. Every shelter speaks the same language. You think, stone or wood, they both want to protect, even as they crack. You feel drowsy. The air inside the hollow has warmed slightly from your combined breath. Tomas's shoulder presses into yours. "Wake me in an hour," he murmurs. "Sure," you lie. You know if either of you sleeps too long, you might not wake again, but you let him rest. You listen to the wind's slow exhale, the wood's deep sighs. Your heart beats steady but soft. You think of the cave, of its dripping music and quiet breath. You wonder if it feels empty now, without you. Then you imagine it sealing itself shut with snow, erasing all trace that you were ever there. Somehow, that thought feels right. Historians still argue whether survival in such retreats was strategy or sheer luck. You lean toward luck, and a stubborn refusal to stop breathing. The wind howls louder, then softens again. The storm begins to drift east, the way you're supposed to go. You whisper to the sleeping Tomas, "We follow the wind tomorrow, east, like always." Outside, the first hint of dawn, just a pale blush behind the clouds, touches the horizon. You watch it through a crack in the bark. The light looks almost golden. You'd forgotten how beautiful that color was. When you open your eyes again, the light is real, not moonlight, not illusion, but morning. Pale gold edges the snowdrifts and paints the hollow tree's rim. For the first time in what feels like centuries, you can see color that isn't blue or gray. Tomas is already awake, shivering but smiling faintly. "Told you I'd make it," he says. "You were snoring loud enough to scare the storm away," you reply. The air is still bitter, but something in it has changed. It smells thinner, cleaner, like the cold after rain. You both crawl out of the hollow and blink against the glare. The whole valley below lies under a new crust of snow that sparkles as if dusted with ground glass. You can see the faint trail of the marching column from yesterday already, half erased by wind. Tomas stretches and says quietly, "Guess the world decided to keep existing after all. Generous of it," you mutter. Rubbing your hands, you start walking again, following the faint line eastward. The crunch of boots is the only sound. Each step leaves a perfect print that the wind immediately begins to fill, erasing you almost as fast as you move. You think of the cave, how even that place will vanish soon, sealed forever beneath snow and memory. After an hour, the cold begins to seep deeper again. The air tastes of iron and pine resin. You stop beside a frozen stream, its surface opaque white, except for a single crack where black water gleams beneath. You kneel, break the ice with your bayonet, and scoop water into your canteen. It's so cold it burns. You drink anyway. Historians later wrote that soldiers during winter retreats described this first drink of thawed water as liquid life. They said it tasted of stone, air, and stubbornness. You can confirm that. It tastes like not giving up. Tomas crouches beside you. You ever think about how it'll sound when the war's over? You blink. Sound. Yeah, I keep trying to remember what peace sounds like. You think about it for a long moment. Maybe, like this stream, you say finally, moving, but not exploding. He laughs softly. Good enough for me. You both rest a while, watching the tiny thread of water run beneath the ice. Its sound is delicate but steady, the same rhythm as breath. You realize that all these weeks you've been surrounded by versions of that sound, dripping caves, wind through cracks, your own lungs working overtime. The earth has been whispering the same message the whole time. Keep flowing. When you start moving again, the forest thickens. The trees here are taller, their trunks black with moisture. The snow is softer underfoot, occasionally collapsing into hidden pits that swallow your legs to the knee. You curse quietly. Tomas chuckles behind you. Feels like walking through pillows, he says. Pillows filled with knives, you answer. He laughs, again a real, deep laugh that startles even him. The echo dances between the trees, startling a crow from a nearby branch. The bird erupts into the air, flapping hard, scattering snow in a glittering spray. You both stop, watching it climb into the pale sky. Its caw cuts through the silence like a promise. Historians who studied survivor testimonies noted that many remembered a single sound or image that marked the moment they realized they'd live. For some, it was fire. For others, sunlight. For you, it's this crow-black against white, moving upward. You walk until your legs tremble. The slope evens out, and through the trees you glimpse something unbelievable. Smoke. Thin, gray, rising straight up. Not from battle too calm, to even from a chimney. You and Tomas exchange looks, not daring to speak. You pick up the pace, crunching through drifts until the trees open into a small clearing. There it is, a cottage, squat and half-buried, with a crooked fence and a roof sagging under snow. You stop at the edge of the clearing, hearts pounding. It could be empty. It could be occupied. It could be salvation or danger. There's no way to know. Tomas breaks the silence. If there's a stove in there, I'm kissing it. Just don't scare whoever owns it, you whisper. You approach slowly, weapons lowered. Smoke still curls from the chimney. That means warmth, maybe food. The door is half open. You push it gently, and it creaks a sound so homely you almost laugh. Inside, the air hits you like a memory. Wood smoke, leather, something faintly sweet. A fire burns in a small stove, crackling softly. On a table sits a pot of something that smells like soup. Real soup. No one is there. You both stand frozen in the doorway, afraid that moving might break the spell. Think it's safe. Tomas whispers. You nod slowly. Doesn't matter. We're already inside. Historians never mention moments like this, the fragile pause between terror and relief. They study battles, not kitchens. But standing here, with heat on your face and steam in your lungs, you realize that warmth itself can be history. You take off your gloves, hold your hands toward the stove, and almost cry at the sting of returning blood. Tomas laughs again, a sound closer to joy than madness this time. For the first time since the retreat began, you both sit down on chairs that don't shift or crumble. You breathe, the fire hums. Outside, snow continues to fall, slow and harmless, and for one long golden moment, the war feels 100 miles away. The first sip of soup nearly breaks you. It's simple, just water, onions, and something that might once have been potatoes, but the taste floods your body like sunlight. You grip the tin bowl in both hands, letting the heat sting your palms, afraid that if you blink, it might disappear. Tomas eats silently beside you. His face is hollow and raw, but his eyes shine with a kind of wonder. Hot food, he whispers. We've rediscovered civilization. You laugh softly, almost a wheeze. Anthropologists will study this moment. He grins, dipping his bread into the broth. Chapter 1. Man encounters boiling water. The cabin creaks gently in the wind. The fire hums. The smell of smoke, salt, and wood oil fills the air, a symphony of life after silence. You can almost feel the frost melting off your soul. After a while, Tomas leans back and sighs. If this is heaven, it smells better than I imagined. You smile faintly. Careful, you'll jinx it. Historians later described how warmth could shock the body after long exposure to cold blood rushing too fast. Hearts skipping beats. They called it reperfusion trauma. You call it joy that hurts a little. When your bowl is empty, you set it on the table, afraid to ask who made the soup. Someone must live here. The single bed in the corner is neatly made. A coat hangs by the door. There are boot prints on the floor, small ones, maybe a woman's or a child's. You glance at Tomas. Whoever lives here might come back. He nods. Then we thank them and go. But I'm not leaving until I can feel my toes again. You both move closer to the stove, boots steaming. The warmth crawls into you slowly, painfully, reviving every nerve that winter had put to sleep. It feels like resurrection. For the first time in weeks, you take off your coat fully. The weight of it hits you when it falls, a layer of grime, ice, and exhaustion left behind on the floor. Your shirt sticks to your skin, damp and rank, but even that feels human again. You notice something else on the wall, a crucifix, hand-carved from dark wood. Next to it, a photograph faded, framed in tin. A family, 2 adults, a little boy. You stare for a long time, heart twisting. They look like ghosts from a parallel world, untouched by snow or hunger. Tomas joins you. You think they made it out? You shrugged. Someone had to make this soup. He nods. Then maybe they'll make it back. You both fall silent, each lost in thought. Outside, wind scrapes against the shutters. The fire pops softly, throwing shadows across the wooden walls. The light turns the room amber, almost sacred. You realize how alien warmth has become to your senses. The colors feel too rich, the air too soft. Even the smell of wood seems decadent. The cave was protection. This is forgiveness. Historians would later debate whether small acts of survival, like finding shelter or food, counted as victories in the grand strategy of war. You decide they do. Empires crumble, but this soup will stay with you forever. You check your pockets, instinctively counting supplies. A few bullets, a knife, the photograph, the letter, still there. The last candle stub too. You place it gently on the table beside the stove. Tomas notices and smiles. Keeping souvenirs. Keeping promises, you reply. You both sit quietly for a while. The sound of the fire becomes hypnotic, a rhythm older than war itself. You close your eyes, and, for the first time since the retreat began, you don't see snow or caves. When you drift off, you see sunlight glinting on fields, the way it used to before everything froze. When you wake again, the fire has dimmed but not died. The storm outside has faded to a soft hush. The air inside the cabin is golden gray, heavy with warmth and sleep. Tomas is sitting by the window, watching the snow. Someone's coming, he says quietly. You join him. 2 figures move through the trees, silhouettes against the pale morning. They're carrying rifles. Your heart clenches. You can't tell if they're friendly or not. You and Tomas exchange a single look, a wordless agreement. You step back, hands visible, ready to speak before shoot. The door opens slowly. The 2 men who step inside wear the same patchwork coats as the partisans. One of them, the older one, smiles when he sees you. So you found it, he says in Polish-accented Russian. The cottage still stands. You exhale slowly. We didn't touch much, just borrowed warmth. The man nods. That's what it's here for. My family lived here before the war. When we left, I promised it would shelter whoever needed it. You glance at the crucifix, then back at him. You kept your promise, he shrugs. The mountain keeps all promises, eventually. Historians later wrote that such partisan cabins existed all across the Carpathian's tiny sanctuaries, stocked with food, blankets, and prayers for strangers. Few ever found them. You wonder how many men froze a few kilometers away, never knowing salvation was this close. The older man gestures to the door. You should come with us. There's a camp to the east, safer ground. The front has moved. You'll live. You look at Tomas. He grins, weak but certain. East again. You both shoulder your packs, thank your unseen hosts, and step once more into the snow. The sun has climbed higher now, throwing pale light across the valley. The snow isn't blinding anymore. It's glowing, gentle, almost warm. As you walk behind the partisans, you glance back once. Smoke still curls from the cottage chimney thin, steady, defiant. It looks like a signal to the sky itself. We survived. You whispered to Tomas, remind me to write about this. He laughs. Write. You'll never stop talking about it. You smile. Good. Let history argue later. For now, I'm just glad to be alive. The wind rises again, but softer now. Not a howl. A song. When the cave ceiling cracks for the first time, you think it's thunder. A low groan, then a sharp snap that echoes like rifle fire. Everyone freezes mid. The candle flame trembles. Dust sifts from above, swirling through the mist like brown snow. Then silence again. The corporal lifts his head, eyes narrow. That wasn't thunder, he says quietly. You stare upward. A jagged line has appeared in the ice coating the ceiling, snaking across like a vein of lightning, frozen mid. The slow drip of water from the icicles has stopped. Even the mountain seems to be holding its breath. Tomas whispers, you think it'll hold? You shrugged, trying for calm. Depends who built it, God or engineers. He smirks nervously. We're doomed either way. You all listen. A faint creak, then another crack. It sounds like the rock itself is flexing, alive and angry. A few men grab their gear instinctively, as though helmets and rifles can stop geology. Historians still argue about how safe those caves really were. Some memoirs claim they collapsed often, entombing whole squads. Others say the danger was exaggerated, a fear magnified by nerves and echo. But when you hear stone moving above your head, debate doesn't help. You just know you're one bad vibration away from eternity. The corporal stands slowly, his breath clouding the air. No fires, he mutters, no sound, not a word. You nod and motion to Tomas to extinguish the candle. Darkness swallows the chamber instantly. It's absolute, so thick, you can feel it pressing against your eyes. The only light now comes from faint blue veins of frost glowing near the ceiling. They shimmer faintly, alive in their own ghostly rhythm. Minutes pass, or hours. You can't tell anymore. The cold deepens. Every sound becomes enormous, a shifting boot, a quiet sniffle. Your heartbeat pounding like artillery inside your chest. Then, suddenly, a drop of freezing water lands on your nose. You flinch. It's followed by another, then another. The ceiling starts dripping again, but faster this time. The fissure has turned into a leak. Get to the wall, the corporal hisses. Everyone scrambles backward, pressing flat against the rock. You can't see them, but you hear the shuffle of boots, the rustle of fabric. You crouch low, covering your head instinctively. Another crack. You follow the two partisans down a narrow forest path, the snow crunching softly beneath your boots. The morning sun filters through the bare trees, casting long gold stripes across the drifts. It's the first light that doesn't hurt your eyes. The first that feels like it belongs to the living. Tomas walks beside you, his steps slow but steady. Funny, he says quietly. It's warmer down here, but I still can't feel my fingers. Don't worry, you answer, smiling. They'll hurt like hell once the blood remembers them. The partisans move quickly, but with purpose, pausing now and then to listen. The forest is quiet, except for the whisper of wind and the distant trickle of thawing streams. Every sound feels strange liquid, alive. Mercifully, not the cave's dripping echo. After about an hour, the path widens into a clearing. Smoke rises again, this time thicker, from several chimneys. A cluster of huts stands half buried in snow, their roofs sagging under the weight. You catch the faint scent of wood and cooked cabbage. Civilization, or what's left of it. One of the partisans, an older man with a scarf wrapped around his beard, turns to you and says, "This is as far as the enemy comes. We keep a few fires, but not enough to be seen from above." You nod. "How many of you are left?" "Enough to keep going," he replies simply. Historians would later call these partisan outposts ghost villages. They were barely on maps small, transient shelters hidden in the folds of mountains, where war paused just long enough for men to remember they were human. Inside one of the huts, you're greeted by a warmth that smells of pine and bread. Someone hands you a mug of hot water mixed with something herbal. You drink it slowly, feeling the heat spread through your chest like sunlight filtered through skin. Tomas sighs and sinks onto a stool. "I forgot what sitting down without freezing feels like." The partisan chuckles. "You'll remember quickly. Eat, rest, talk later." You do. The bread is coarse but warm, the first thing that doesn't break your teeth in weeks. Every bite is a small resurrection. Later, you find yourself standing outside, staring eastward. The sun has risen high enough to turn the snow pale gold. The mountain behind you looms dark and distant, its jagged mouth, the cave now invisible under fresh snow. You can almost imagine it sleeping again, full of secrets, holding the silence you left behind. Tomas joins you, holding a tin cup of soup. "I can't stop thinking about that cave," he says. "Feels wrong leaving it there." You nod. "It'll outlive us all. Maybe it prefers being alone." He smiles faintly. "Still, feels like we should have said goodbye properly." You look at the horizon, the long sweep of white and gray stretching into blue. "Maybe surviving is goodbye," you say. Historians still debate how many soldiers truly made it out from retreats like yours. How many caves still cradle bones beneath ice? Some say thousands, others dozens, but they can't count what really survived. The tiny memories, the jokes whispered in darkness, the sound of men breathing together through fear. That night, the partisans let you and Tomas sleep near the central fire. It's the first time you've slept without stone pressing against your back. You feel the warmth sink into you, deep and slow. Your body, confused by comfort, doesn't know whether to relax or weep. Before closing your eyes, you take out the photograph again. It's nearly transparent now from damp and wear, but the faces still glow faintly in the firelight. You prop it beside you on the floor. Tomas glances over, keeping watch. You smile. "They've earned it." He nods, yawning. "You think we'll ever tell people about this? The cave, the soup, the everything?" "Maybe," you whisper, "but they'll never believe it." He chuckles softly. "Good. Let them think we slept comfortably through winter." The laughter fades into crackling wood and slow rhythmic breathing, the kind that doesn't tremble anymore. Outside, the night settles gently over the mountains. The snow, newly fallen, glows faintly under a thin moon. You can still hear the cave somewhere behind you at least. You imagine you can. The wind carries echoes of it, that steady dripping, the low moan of stone shifting, the breath of the mountain that kept you alive when the sky wanted you gone. You lie awake a little longer, letting the warmth of the fire reach every part of you that the cold had claimed. The air here smells like pine smoke, like life returning. You realize that your body isn't the same anymore, it's lighter, but your mind is heavier, fuller, as if the mountain carved something permanent into it. Historians might write about battles and strategies, about who advanced and who fell back. But the real war was quieter. It happened in caves and hearts, in the way men learned to share breath, laughter, and crumbs in the dark. You think of the candlelight dancing across frost, of Tomas humming in his sleep, of the rats that kept time with your footsteps. Every small detail feels holy now. You close your eyes and let the warmth carry you. The snow outside falls softer now, patient and forgiving. Somewhere in the distance, maybe miles away, the wind still sighs through the old cave's mouth, but not in warning anymore. It sounds like a lullaby. You smile, whispering into the quiet, "Sleep well, mountain, we made it." And for the first time since the retreat began, you let yourself truly rest.